So let's talk about the transition between taking that new call, the sign up, and getting it over to the paralegal and to the attorney, right? That's what section is all about. So what do we need to do in the intake department before we can hand it off, right? Gather all essential info. These are all the basics, right? Accident description, aggravating circumstances, injury description, insurance info, witness info, to some degree, okay? We don't have to go crazy here. The paralegals, case managers can follow up with a lot of that, but certainly the basics. To me, the most important thing here is to get a really comprehensive note in the file about what happened and really try to capture the tone of the caller. This is really important because no one has spoken to them yet other than the intake specialist, right? And so capture in that note, this person was really high-strung or very, very anxious, or this person spoke really quickly, or this person cried during the entire phone call. That's all very helpful to the paralegal and to the attorney going in, right? Tell us your story, capture it thoroughly in a note. And when we talked about scripts or outlines when you're doing that initial intake, if you are a firm that has a built-in outline or a script, and the part where you say, okay, why don't you tell me what happened, or can you describe for me what happened? If that's at the bottom of the page, and when that caller starts talking, they just dive in here, let them, okay? It's okay that that's at the bottom of your script, all right? Let's be flexible. Let them tell their story. They obviously need to get that out in the beginning of the call, even though that's not the way you would have necessarily structured the call. I would say you should let them get that out in the beginning, but every firm's different. Okay, welcome to the family. This is really important. Now, this requires us to put ourselves in the shoes of the caller, and for that reason, I like to assume that all of our new callers have never been in an accident or a crash. I gotta work on that. So many of them haven't, right? And that's really scary. Many of them have never needed a lawyer before. Lawyers can be intimidating, right? So we've got to put ourselves in their shoes. There's a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, fear, hesitancy. God knows, personal injury lawyers don't have the best reputation, right? And all the while during all this, they're wondering, when am I going to get my car out of storage, or my car is totaled and I still owe money on it, and all of these other things, right? So let's be really patient and let them know they came to the right place. The more we can do to make them part of our family and reassure them that they have come to the right place, the better. Okay, let them know their best interests are our #1 priority. And explain the next steps. It's really important to let the client know what they can expect in the short term, okay? So this is still the intake people, right? Talking to the person who just signed up and saying, okay, now we're going to, assign a paralegal to this case, we're going to assign an attorney to this case, and this is what you can expect. Don't feel you need to explain what happens after that. Just let them know in the short term what happens next. It's very reassuring. Okay. Discuss the do's and don'ts. Please do schedule any follow-up care. Keep all your scheduled medical appointments. Write down questions that come up after the call, right? All of this is being done so that that transition to the paralegal and attorney is very seamless, right? So when they pick up that file, you have done a thorough job. You've dotted every I, you've crossed every T. Anything that they could be wondering about is documented in its rightful place in your case management system or in a note. But, ask these questions and make these statements. Please don't, right? Important. Remind the new client. Please don't talk to the insurance company. Please don't provide a recorded statement if you haven't already. And please don't post anything about your crash on social media. That one is right? That's a big one, right? We see that a lot. I referred a case to a friend of mine who's a lawyer, and it was a great case. And the reason I heard about the case is because this person is an acquaintance of mine on Facebook, and he had asked, does anybody know a good personal injury lawyer? So I sent him a note in Messenger saying, as a matter of fact, I do. If you want to know more, let me know. And he reached out, I referred him, and sure enough, he signed up with that client. Now he starts posting all these things about his accident, and I can see it because we're friends on Facebook. So I called his lawyer. I said, you really need to tell your client to stop posting all this stuff, right? Happens a lot, right? Photos, right? Okay. Let the client know their case is being assigned to a case manager and attorney. This is what they can expect in the short term, right? Their case manager will be calling them by the end of the next business day. And when we say that, it has to happen, right? We cannot say something's going to happen and then we don't follow through because we lose all credibility. If something comes up, give them a phone number to call, right? They can call you back, right? They should, because you're the only one they've spoken to yet, and you can get them to the right person at that point. And everything provided to intake will be passed along to their case manager and attorney. All of this is designed to reassure and lower the level of anxiety. Okay. When you come across something that a caller says, a new client says that you think is significant, give a heads up to the assigned case manager and attorney. Note the file. In some softwares, there's a place to note, red flag type information that they would deem important, right? So it might be a VIP client. This might be a relative or best friend of the partner, right? And they somehow bypassed the partner and came right to intake, so the partner doesn't even know that this person was involved in an accident. But they may have told you, you got to note that somewhere. That's pretty important. That would be a VIP client. Not that they're not all VIPs, but that one, I think we'd want to know, right? Red flags. If the person, every time you spoke to them, they sounded like they were drunk or on something or erratic behavior, note that in the file. The attorney will thank you for it. Okay, property damage, anything unusual about the property damage, because that's always a priority for our clients, right? Their car is still in storage, it's still collecting storage, right? Let the lawyer know right away because they got to get on that right away. Unable to get medical treatment, we can help them.
And I just want to kind of support what you're talking about here about unable to get medical treatment. That is really important. If the client has called you to say, I need to get an attorney involved. I'm not able to get into treatment. I can't find somebody in network with me, with my insurance, with auto insurance. Pass that along to your case management team so that they can be prepared to give them options as soon as they make that introduction call, that is readily available so that they can relay that information. They can research that, who's closest to them, what specialty do they need to go see, that they can have those options available right then at that call for the client, so that again that transition is seamless, that they're communicating with one another in that urgent matter that probably sparked the call initially, made its way to the appropriate party, and you're setting that team up for success. So all these and I'm sure that there's many more, but this is just a highlight of some that we see often, but really capture that in the system, and then make sure that the case management team is aware of these issues that the client is dealing with so that they can be prepared when they make that call to help, to continue to help.
Absolutely. Okay, so what happens when intake does not thoroughly complete everything that they were supposed to? And the case gets signed up, and now the paralegals got it and the attorneys got it, and they're wondering, well, what about this? Why is that incomplete? Why is that field not filled out, right? Or, how come we don't have that information? There are several handoff transitions throughout the life of a case. This is the first one. And as a rule, I would say the test is what's in the best interest of the client. So what do we do, right? The answer is we do whatever's in the best interest of the client, not what we feel is just and right necessarily, which is give it back to the person who didn't do it thoroughly, right? Right? Not always, okay? Here's what I think is a better solution. That might be tempting, by the way, and I understand that, but a better solution is the best interest of the client is always to keep the case moving forward. As a plaintiff attorney, our job is to work the case toward the finish line, always. Avoid delays, okay? Defense counsel's job is to delay, put up roadblocks, stall, delay. Our job is the opposite. So, once it gets in the pipeline, we keep pushing forward. You want to give it back to intake because they didn't do a thorough job at intake? No. Let's let the paralegals, case managers fill in the blanks for the most part. If it's a chronic problem and intake was not thorough, then it's a conversation with that person on the intake team who didn't capture it thoroughly on a recurring basis. It's a management issue, okay? Don't just hand it back because you're going in the wrong direction of the pipeline when you give it back, okay? So, for the most part, intake can help, but intake tasks take priority. That's the other reason we don't hand it back up the pipeline. Intake is so important. They've got to field these calls. You can't be having them, do every little thing that they were supposed to do, but that perhaps they missed. Perhaps for a good reason that information was not available at that time. Don't give it back. Let them field those calls. All right. Let's see here. Come on. No? Maurice? Hand off checklist. All right, so foolproof way of making sure we are dotting every I and crossing every T before it goes to the paralegal and attorney, you may want to create a checklist, right? Something to just check before you hand it over. Make sure you did everything. It's hard to remember everything we need to do every day. Sometimes you need a cheat sheet. I'm fine with that, right? Whatever works. That's a handoff checklist. Let's make sure we got everything we needed for the case manager, paralegal, attorney before we give it to them.